Hello, I'm Alan Kohler, founder of Eureka Report, which is now part of Intelligent Investor, and the finance presenter and columnist for the ABC.
And I'm Stephen Mayne, contributor at Intelligent Investor, founder of Crikey and shareholder advocate.
And we are
the Money Café, Alan.
Yes, we are.
Gee, Alan, it's been the killing fields in CEO land yesterday. Can you believe it? CSL, bang. Paul McKenzie, CEO for the last 3 years, he's out. And then ASX on the same day, Helen Loftus, bang, gone, although she does get to stay until May for an orderly transition, whereas poor old Paul McKenzie, the American CEO of CSL, he was meant to be fronting today's half-year earnings result, and instead he's out the door, and they've put in Gordon Taylor, who's the old CFO, brought him back from the dead. He left the company in 2019. He joined the board again last December, and he's all of a sudden the interim CEO. And the share price crashed another 5%. It'll fall more today. So CSL's struggling to stay in the top 10 now. I mean, for a while there, they were the number one. And so they've had a hell of a ride, and CEO held accountable.
I presume we think that Paul McKenzie got sacked, do we?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, Alan. So he's decided to retire.
The announcement said he's going to retire.
Yes, well,
spend more time with his family.
That's right. So you can always tell these things with the time difference between the day of the announcement and the day that the person is out the door. And when you're out the door on the same day, the day before you're meant to be doing the big results presentation, you know it's been a firing based on the
yes.
We're not happy with these numbers, CEO. We don't believe you should present them. And so, but it's interesting. I call them the three wise men at CSL. So you've got obviously Brian McNamee, CEO for 23 years. He's been back as the chair for the last 8 years. And you've got Professor Andrew Cuthbertson, who was sort of the number one research guy. He's on the board still, chair of the sort of technical research committee. He's been there for 30 years, and now they've brought back the old CFO who'd worked there for 29 years. So these three wise men, with their combined 90 years of service, have got the band back together. All three are on the board. One's the chair, one's the new CEO, Gordon Taylor, and they're going to right the ship. And frankly, I think it's a little bit back to the future, and it's not a great look.
Those three obviously run the place, don't they?
Well, they're the little faction. They're the Melbourne boys, and most of the rest of the board are, US, offshore, and they're non-exec. So to have sort of three former long-serving executives all serving on the board, non-executive at some times, but so they're not really independent because they're all former executives, and they've got all the top jobs, and they've just got together and gone, this American's no good. He's out. Let's put one of the three wise men back in charge. And the stock's almost in danger of falling out of the top 10. So I
presume they're having an international search now for a permanent CEO, are they? Gordon Taylor's not going to stay in the job, is he?
Well, he's not long term, but these boys are all late 60s, 70s. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays for a couple of years. I mean, he's a safe pair of hands type thing. So,
right.
But anyway, and then ASX.
Do you think that the decline in CSL's share price is Paul McKenzie's fault?
Oh, look, it's always a collective thing. I mean, we always blame the CEO for everything, and it's always a team effort. I mean, they've been hit by a range of things, particularly the anti-vaxxing in the US. I mean, they went all in on vaccines, and then Bobby Kennedy gets elected, or Trump gets elected and puts Bobby Kennedy in. So that's hurt them. But they lost a big contract with the NHS in the UK, which surprised a lot of people. And then their communications has been terrible. Shock profit warnings and but I don't know. I think that I don't think it's a great look to have all these old timers hanging around with their combined 90 years of experience. And
I presume at the ASX, Helen Loftus, even though she's there for another 3 months, she got fired because of all the controversy and when the place shut down for a while.
Oh,
the publishing shut down for a while. When was that? That was just before Christmas, I think.
there was there's technical failures, system failures. There's the governance issues of ASICs all over them. So I think that it's an ASIC-driven situation where ASIC is wanting some accountability. They sacked the chair. 18 months ago, or 15 months ago, we brought David Clark in, who was the last CEO of Allco Finance Group, which had collapsed. So that in the GFC, so that wasn't a great look for mine. But they're claiming Helen Loftus has got to stage 1 of the new chess project. Remember how they wrote off $250 million on their new chess it's just a settlement system for the ASX, and they're now saying, well, she's rebooted, she's got to stage 1, we're going to get chess right, now's a good time to transition. But at the end of the day, it's just too many stuff-ups. You've been there 3 years, you've been at the ASX for 11 years, you need someone without any baggage. And so out she goes, albeit there until May for the global search to take place.
Yes, and maybe maybe ASIC should conduct the search. That should they've got to be happy with the person, I guess, don't they?
Well, because it's such a government-reliant monopoly, and it's sort of pivotal to the financial infrastructure of Australia, it has enormous power and responsibility. And ASIC's been all over them. They've got this legislative monopoly in quite a few areas of their operation. So they need a CEO who can be sweet with ASIC and sweet with the government, because the last thing that they need is to come in and have their settlement monopoly opened up. So they're basically a government monopoly. So government relations is pivotal. And if you're a lazy government-protected monopoly and you can't even get your tech right and you keep on having all these blunders, people will always say maybe we need a bit of competition and maybe you can't be trusted with the monopoly license. So that's always their biggest risk, and they'll need to find someone who ASIC and the government won't be offended by and who can stop all the blunders.
Yes.
Anyway, but it's always interesting watching the CEOs come and go. Now, what about interest rates, Alan? You've 6 months since the last cut, and up they go. Have you been surprised? And also the breakout of inflation. Where are you sitting with all of that?
Well, I got it completely wrong. As I did last year. Last year I said they wouldn't cut interest rates, and they did 3 times. This year I started the year by saying that they won't hike interest rates, and they have already. So you wouldn't want to listen to a word I say, in fact.
Don't say that. Prognostication is a difficult business, Alan. No one gets it right all the time.
Especially when it's about the future, as Yogi Berra said.
Yes, no, that's right. So, but look, keep prognosticating. So you hinted on the news last night that rising dollar could be deflationary because cheaper imports, and maybe we'll only get the one rate rise. Tell us more about that.
Oh, well,
theory.
The Australian dollar is up against the US dollar and also against the trade-weighted index. It's let me just have a look at it. It's up. So look, all else being equal, a higher Australian dollar equals cheaper imports, which tends to bring prices down. So look, I saw something. So an economist the other day say that the rise in the dollar, it's basically happened since since the start of January, really, mid-January. It's up quite a lot. So
above 70 cents, though. How exciting is that?
Well, it's a 3-year high, I guess.
The little Aussie battler. Up she goes.
Up she goes. And it's a combination of the US dollar being weak, which is the opposite of gold being strong, and also gold price, silver, copper, all pretty strong. So commodity prices up, US dollar down equals Australian dollar up. And, that equals, according to one economist, about a 1% fall in inflation if it keeps going. So, look, we could, it's possible. It's possible you'll end up with no more rate hikes because inflation comes under control because of the rising dollar. That's possible. About 30 to 35% of Australia's consumption is from imports. So, rising dollar affects about a third of demand.
Cheaper TVs and all the other gadgets that we buy. So now you also had an interesting column I thought your interest rate column on the ABC, where you talked about the fact that the RBA had cut their forecasts for dwelling investment, and you linked that to the rise in One Nation, which I think you're fair to say the rise in One Nation in the polls is playing into the crisis and the soap opera within the Liberal Party. But so you reckon there's a direct connection between Hanson's support and housing affordability, the immigration debate, and the fact that the RBA has come out and cut their forecasts of dwelling investment growth at the same time as their rising interest rates makes it even more electrifying politically as a hot button issue.
Well, yeah, look, I was looking at the RBA's forecast that they released at the same time as the interest rate decision last Tuesday, and they haven't just cut their dwelling investment forecast, they've slashed it from 3% to 0.3%. And then in 2027, they're predicting that dwelling investment will fall by 0.4%. So, the growth so they're predicting, in fact, that the government's target of 1.2 million houses over 5 years will definitely not be met. I mean, they're just way, way short of it. So look, I suppose I was saying that a lot of people are linking. A lot of people are saying, we've got a housing affordability crisis because of the big rise in immigration in the past few years, and I think that stands up. I mean, I think that's clearly the case. Obviously, there was a big drop in immigration during the pandemic, but over the past 20 years, immigration has been, unusually high. And Howard increased immigration from about 100,000 a year to 300,000 a year, and it's kind of stayed there. And then in the last couple of years, it's been 400 or 500,000 a year, and it's quite obvious that that housing construction has fallen short of meeting the needs of the extra population. We've just had a big housing shortage. Shane Oliver at AMP says that the cumulative housing shortage is about 220,000 houses. So the Reserve Bank's forecast suggests that that's going to get worse. The shortage is going to increase unless there's a big decline in immigration, and that doesn't seem to be on the cards. The Treasury forecasts that immigration next year will be 225,000, but there's no way that's going to be met. It looks like being at least 300,000 going forward, and the big reason for that is student visas for the universities. So I linked it back to when the decision was made to increase in immigration with the first intergenerational report, 2002, which Costello commissioned from Treasury. And Treasury reported to Costello and Howard that we've got a big ageing of the population problem coming up when the baby boomers retire, which is, hardly a blinding insight. I mean, obviously that's the case. It's happening around the world. Baby boomers retiring, big ageing of the population problem, the ratio between people who are retired and people who are working, declines. So they decided then to deal with that through immigration and to push immigration through student visas, because that would have the added benefit of funding the universities as the government money for universities declines.
And where do you see the Hanson One Nation and the coalition thing? I mean, the coalition is imploding. They've never been more unpopular in the polls. It's a soap opera. They can't make up. Angus Taylor, is he going to challenge or not? Susan Lee, they put a moderate woman in charge, and the right wing blokes are going to just roll her straight away. They do seem to be panicking in response to the One Nation polls. And I think that maybe even the defection of Barnaby Joyce, that was quite a moment, I think, in terms of, Barnaby, a former deputy prime minister of a long-term ruling party, defecting, and now others looking to follow. So, and then Labor gets away with it because they're not being held to account.
So look,
would you change to Mr. Taylor? I mean, is it cactus for Susan Lee, do you think? I mean, I think it's a terrible look if they, roll their first female leader this quickly. But the polls are saying that they're going to get less votes than One Nation. I mean, we've never seen, except for the Queensland election in 98, we've never seen a situation like this. We're one of the last countries to have a serious right-wing insurgency disrupting the mainstream political consensus. It's playing out for the first time.
Yeah, so look, I'm not a political analyst, but it seems to me the rise of the right-wing insurgency, as you put it, in Australia is similar to that elsewhere in the world, which is mainly to do with immigration. I mean, obviously there's more to it with One Nation than that, but it seems to me the main thing. And, as I pointed out in that column, 30% of millennials and 48% of Gen Xers say that they look favourably on One Nation. Well, crikey, nearly half the Gen Xers, which is 45 to 60-year-olds in the country, are looking very favourably or mostly favourably at One Nation. I mean, that's amazing, I think. Amazing. I mean, they mightn't vote for him, but crikey, that's... So why would that be? And the answer is because... Pauline Hanson's brand is anti-immigration.
Yeah.
I mean, she's also talking about, tax and cost of living and so on, but really what her brand is about is immigration, helped by wearing a burqa into the Senate and so on. So look, I mean, it just seems obvious to me that's the housing, and when you look at what's the problem, what are people peeved about immigration for, and the answer is housing, clearly, because that's the foundation of the cost of living problem. I mean, yeah, inflation's been high, but it's not anymore. It's still, it's still under 3.5%. It's not that high. So the groceries aren't rising all that much, but house prices went up 8.6% last year, which was more than double incomes, and people are absolutely fed up with it.
I guess it was interesting that when Dutton was in charge, you never really had this One Nation insurgency because he was perceived to be of the right and a hard man of the right. But then he gets absolutely smashed because of, perceptions of Trump light and a well-run Labor machine campaign. And then they pivot back to a moderate, more centrist leader, and then bang, up goes the right vote. So, I mean, maybe it does have to be the right faction takes over Angus Taylor and then a whole bunch of right-wing policies. I mean, John Howard pivoted to the right when Hanson, in 98, she got, almost got quite close to government in Queensland in 98, and Howard did pivot from Tampa, Children Overboard and everything else. He pivoted to the right. So, you probably will see the Libs, but then they all give up on all the Metro seats and the Teals, and you get that whole debate of they're a twixt in between. And then,
yeah, but the trouble with that is that, if you're in the far right, following Sky After Dark and all that, you might get a protest vote, you might get 20%, maybe 25%, but you won't be government. Government the government in Australia is one in the centre, as Malcolm Turnbull pointed out yesterday.
That's right. Well, compulsory preferential voting is what will ultimately save the duopoly. And the One Nation is only really a Senate party. The Greens are only really Senate parties. It's just too hard to run a national campaign where you've got compulsory voting and you've got to, man every single booth in the country. You need 100 million to run a campaign. It's just too hard. That legislative duopoly, I think, is too hard. So people come and go, but I would be very surprised if this materialises into any form of One Nation governing arrangement any time in my lifetime. But, we all make predictions and we can be wrong.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, things change. I mean, when Menzies started the Liberal Party, he clearly said, we are not conservatives, we're liberals. And, we're in the centre. And, look, things have changed, no doubt about it. I mean, maybe that doesn't apply anymore, I don't know. But I don't think, it seems to me, Malcolm Turnbull's probably right that, you're not going to win government. You have to, the Liberal Party, in order to win government, has to win back the urban seats they lost to the Teals. And they won't do that by being in the far right, particularly on climate.
Correct. No, I agree. And Hanson, she's not a long-term future. She's not a very competent politician. So she's never had any sort of governing experience. You would need a younger, highly charismatic person and team to actually pull off a right-wing insurgency. I can't see her doing it, but who knows? Now, look, Alan, we should also cover off the software sell-off and the whole sort of AI debate coming out of Trumpistan. Have you? I was pretty shocked by the size of those sell-offs, including in Australia, where the likes of Tech One and Car Group, Seek, REA, Wise Tech, they're all down 30 to 40% in sort of broadly in 6 months because of the perceived disruption to their software-reliant business models, their economic moats, if you like. Was this the big sort of hello world moment with AI, where the actual disruption of it, not just the bubble in share prices and the infrastructure spend, but the actual disruption of it really sent a global tremor around anything to do with software?
Yeah, well, so obviously everyone's been going along for a while thinking, oh, well, the AI will replace a lot of people, but, our companies would be fine. And, but what happened last week was that Anthropic released a new version of Claude with a plugin that deals with legal drafting and a whole lot of back office legal things, just does them, right? And so that then shook up all the investors in software companies thinking, crikey, maybe AI will take over what these software companies do as well as what individual human beings do. And then Claude released Claude 4.6, I think it was, Opus 4.6, which is self-running. It basically entirely does all of the code for Anthropic. Anthropic also said that Claude now produces or writes 100% of their code, all of it. And then ChatGPT or OpenAI released another version of ChatGPT that does the same thing. So these things, the problem is that it's moving really fast now. I mean, somebody released a new social media platform called Maltbook for AIs. It's a Facebook for AIs to talk to each other, and they are. There's millions of them now talking to each other on Maltbook. So I think investors are suddenly realising they have no idea what's going to happen. I think it's fair to say problem.
I think Canva's certainly missed the window, haven't they? I mean, they're a software company, so they should have floated last year. Because, I mean, Atlassian shares are down like 70% in 13 or 14 months. I mean, that is incredible. So the valuation wipeout, the market is saying that this is real and this is really going to hurt. We haven't seen any software companies' actual profits crash yet. So that's what's actually got to happen is, our revenue's down 20% because we've lost 30% of our customers. If Tech One came out and said, because Tech One has a monopoly over, council software and programs for like rating and finance systems. If all of a sudden a whole bunch of councils all over Australia are ditching Technology One and buying AI products to take over Tech One, then that would send the Tech One share price, it's already crashed from 42 to 23. That would send it back to 5 because they've basically got effectively a monopoly over council finance ratings and property systems, and they get disrupted, and that's a $10 billion company down to 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I think what it just shows is that nobody's really got any idea what's going to happen with AI, and investors are kind of selling first and asking questions later. They're saying, well, it's too uncertain. I've got to get out.
I did love Google, though. I mean, Google's come out and said, we're going to double our CapEx. So 3 months ago, they said their CapEx was going to be 90 billion. And then last week, they came out and said, actually, it's going to be 180 billion. So everyone said, chips and data centers, the bricks and mortars, the picks and shovels. If Amazon and Google are coming out and with these massive increases in CapEx, and the Magnificent Seven of all of a sudden they're going to go from spending $400 billion US to $700 billion US year on year, 25 versus 26, That is great for the NVIDIAs. That is great for anyone building data centers and servicing data centers. But who's going to pay for it? And so Alphabet's come out and raised 100 billion Australian dollars in the last few days, issuing bonds, UK-denominated bonds and Swiss-denominated bonds, some of them. So they're going global in raising 100 billion with the sort of 100-year bonds, and the market loved it. So, there's massive debt being taken out to do this incredible, unprecedented infrastructure spend.
So these companies haven't got enough cash flow anymore to pay for the data centres they're building, and they can't raise enough money from the equity market. So they're borrowing now. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And this is why Microsoft's market cap's gone from 4 trillion to 3 trillion. I mean, that's $1 trillion gone because, this is heading towards negative cash flow.
And the other day, someone in China released a new AI which sits on your device. So it doesn't need data centers. It's a little open source AI that's really cheap and sits on your device. So I reckon a lot of this data center investment might prove to be unnecessary.
Tumbleweeds blowing through the empty data centers one day. Goodness me. Repurposing data centers for housing. Who knows? But I think half the stuff that's been announced won't ever be built on the data center front. But
all right.
Yes. All right,
anyway,
boss.
We better move to questions. Before that, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor.
Markets in Australia and overseas have sold off in recent weeks. Volatility is back and valuations are being tested. If you're thinking about how to position your portfolio for the years ahead, join Nathan Bell and Nick Cummings, portfolio managers of the Intelligent Investor Select Value Share Fund, for a live webinar on Thursday, the 19th of February at 1 p.m. They'll unpack why value investing could be making a comeback in the world of more volatility and greater mispricing, especially among the mega caps. You'll also get insight into how they look for quality businesses at attractive prices, where they're investing now, and why discipline counts for long-term success. Plus, there will be a live Q&A. Register now at offer.intelligentinvestor.com.au/IISV.
Okay, first question is from Alicia, who loves listening to Money Café on her morning commute, and her husband also listens. Good for you. I have a question for you. You and James mentioned we have mediocre government for some time now, which has hampered economic growth. How do we incentivise politicians to get back to basics of coming up with great policies and having the courage to implement them? That's for you.
Where do you
I
start?
have no idea. I don't know.
I was going to suggest one change for me. It would be random selection, back to the ancient Greeks, similar to picking juries. So you have government by like a jury, and that would get rid of the rent seekers, the media moguls, the loudest voices, the factional bosses. So I think that's the tweak to the democratic system that I would do. I'd also pay them more, tenure limits, and I think they get rid of the whole party solidarity thing and let politicians vote how they feel rather than this ridiculous straitjacket with got to follow the party room dictate, otherwise you have all this national liberal coalition breakups, lack of all that sort of rubbish that flows from that. Anyway, but look, if you could change one thing with politics, Alan, what would you do? Would you pay them more? Would you have a tenure limit? You can't do more than 20 years.
I'd probably do those things, but I think the one thing I probably would do, particularly in Victoria, but I think elsewhere, is to pass a law that says politicians or premiers and prime ministers can only wear a hard hat and a high-vis vest once a week, no more often than once a week, because Jacinta Allen's doing it every night. It's unbelievable. You turn on the TV and there she is with a hard hat and a high-vis vest on. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so
so she's not doing any work.
The whole incentive system is gathering votes. So all the effort goes into presentation to the public to gather votes, as opposed to competently run the state. So, there you go. Now, question 2, we've got a couple we're going to combine on precious metals. So Kapil says, I was having a look at the COMEX open interest for the month of March, which shows a huge demand for silver. Was wondering what your take on that would be. And Brian says, I've got a 5-ounce nugget of gold. Should I sell and put it into shares? Brian's also got 180,000 in shares at the moment, a $1.4 million house, no debt. He's 64 years old, kids at home, and he's still working. So look, Brian, I'll start with the gold. Alan can do the silver. That 5 ounces of gold that you've got, that nice little nugget, that's currently worth $38,000. Now, when the Reserve Bank was selling 5 ounces of gold, or they sold much more than that back in 1997, that would have been worth about $3,000. So, well, actually even a bit less, but closer to $2,000. So I would not disagree with cashing in your 5 ounces for $38,000 at the top of this boom. But, Alan, we don't give any financial advice, as you know. But what about silver, Alan? What's going on with that?
Well, I think with both gold and silver, there's a lot of confusion going on. A lot of people talk about it as a safe haven alternative to the US dollar, and that's clearly what's underpinning central bank buying, particularly of gold. And also, you see, there was a story the other day when the gold price crashed. There was queues outside ABC Bullion in Sydney of people trying to buy it. They weren't trying to sell it. They apparently were trying to buy it because they thought it was a bargain. And so those people, the central banks and the people queuing outside ABC Bullion, are buying actual gold, like Brian with his 5 ounce nugget. But most of what goes on with gold and silver is spot market and futures market trading. A spot market is a settlement in 2 days, and futures market is settlement in at least a month, where you buy gold and you'll say you'll buy it in a month's time at a certain price. So and it's a certificate. You're getting a piece of paper that says you're going to do that, and then you can buy futures for 3 months and 6 months and so on. So, and I rang ABC Bullion the other day and asked them how they go about pricing the gold that people buy when they walk in and buy the 5 ounce nugget of gold, and the answer is they price it off the spot market and the futures market, somewhere between the two. They kind of average the two prices, which are pretty close. I mean, they're usually the spot market and the futures market front month, that is to say the first month. So when we're in February, the March futures, they are pretty much the same as the spot price. And so the physical gold price is set according to the futures and spot market trading. And the futures and spot market trading is all speculation by big traders who are doing, billions and billions of dollars of trades, and they're basically gambling. It isn't that is not safe haven investing. And even the safe haven investing by central banks and people who are queuing outside ABC Bullion, the price that they're paying is set by the speculators. So basically the whole system of precious metals investing is speculation, and that's what's been going on. It's just simply a bubble. It was gold and silver was a speculative bubble, and it burst.
Yeah, but gold's back above 5,000 now. I think it's only come off marginally. Bitcoin, the bubble has burst. It has absolutely crashed. I would argue that Bitcoin is far more, and crypto is far more speculative. But all markets, there's an element of financialization and the futures and derivatives. But at the end of the day, it is real money being spent by central banks all over the world buying actual physical gold. That is also a big part of the story. So I'm not a believer that the gold price is going to crash. I do believe $40 billion of West Australian gold will be sold this year and probably next year as well. Until Trump calms down, and because surely it's not just speculation. The safe haven thing is for real, I would argue, with gold. And it's been the biggest thing about Trump and speculation and printing money is that gold is a physical thing that you can have a store in value, and it's back. Gold is great. I disagree with you on that. I don't think it's all a bubble. Gold's not going to burst. You really think the gold price is going to go back to what, 2,000 or 3,000 or something?
I've got no idea. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that the price of gold is set in the speculative markets now. That doesn't mean it's going to fall, but that's what it is. Look.
That certainly happened with silver. There was a speculative top and it suddenly crashed, and that was a dislocation in the futures markets. But beneath the ups and downs within a month, there is also, it has been a fundamental thing with silver is needed in industrial production, and it's a store of value. we don't have enough silver in the world. There's not enough new mines, and everyone's clamoring to get it, just like they're doing the same with some of the bulk commodities.
But why do you and people think that gold and silver are stores of value? The answer, obviously, is that it used to be money. I mean, silver used to be more money than gold, but still, it was right up until 1971. Gold was the sort of foundation of money, and then it wasn't. And it used to be, when the gold rush happened in Victoria in the 1850s, people were finding money on the ground.
That's right. And Melbourne was the richest city in the world.
That's because gold was money. Gold was money.
I mean, gold has been money, still is money, and it's back to being money. But central banks are buying it. I mean, would you rather buy the US dollar with their $37 trillion of debt? Just using a computer to print it? That's not real. At least gold, there's something real about it. You can touch it. You can feel it. You can stick it in your central bank safe.
Which is what they're doing. I know.
Which is what they're doing. So anyway, now Chris has said, hi guys, further to recent commentary on productivity or lack thereof, I want to challenge the 24-hour work rule for students. Now, Chris is a manager in one of the big supermarkets, and he's frustrated by this rule because he gives international students shifts at the start of the week. They take sickies. He wants to give them more shifts, but then they point out they've already done their 24 hours for the week. They want to work. I need them to work, but they can't because of this stupid rule. It's crazy, says supermarket manager Chris. What do you reckon, Alan? Do you just get rid of the 24-hour rule and say international students can work 60 hours a week if they want to?
Oh, I think it's just crazy, the whole thing. I mean, honestly. So aren't they supposed to be studying? They're students.
Well, that's the thing. The fig leaf, it's basically a cheap worker visa, and no one calls it that. And the 24-hour rule is designed to pretend that it's not really a cheap labour policy, but it's actually a selling education services policy. And so if they ban the 24-hour rule, they'd be admitting that Australia has moved to a Singapore style, or not quite, but because you have to pay them the minimum wage. You can't pay foreign worker wages like in Singapore and many parts of the world. But it is interesting that... Are
they really all obeying the 24-hour rule anyway? Are they?
Well, they'd be risking getting thrown out of the country. I mean, I dare say there's a heck of a lot of cash being paid, Alan. I mean, you've done your 24 hours. We'll give you a shift off the books. But Woolies and Coles can't do that. No. So only the backyard illegal tobacco shop can do that. But Coles and Woolies can't because they've already had a world of trouble with wage theft and everything else, and they got to follow the rules.
I guess Uber Eats can't do it either.
No. But you might have subcontractors of subcontractors, a little franchise somewhere who's got someone else who's subbed out something, and what do you know is going on in your little delivery subcontracting business?
Yes.
Who knows? Your turn, boss.
Julie says rates are not too high. It's the houses that are too expensive. If the price of houses can't fall, then houses should not be an investment. Discuss.
Well, Julie, we love the brevity of the question, Julie. You haven't sent through an essay, as some people do, but I think your comment ignores the key issue, which is that supply is the key issue, preferably, in my view, government-owned or financed supply. The Reserve Bank, as Alan said earlier, is predicting a reduction in the growth of supply. And I think rather than the tax treatment of housing as an investment, I think, it might move the dial a bit, but for me, it's supply. And plus levels of immigration, and they're the two biggest drivers, lack of supply and excess demand.
Yeah, speaking of
You're the housing boss. What do you reckon?
Well, Chalmers is clearly flying a kite for cutting the capital gains tax discount in the budget. We don't know whether he'll just halve it to 25%, as the Labor Party promised to do in 2016 and 19, or whether he just goes back to the old inflation adjustment system, which applied between 1985 and 1999. So, but it looks like that's what's going to change. But I agree with you. I don't think that's going to make a big difference to house prices. I think it'll be done mainly to raise revenue, I think, and fair enough. There's nothing wrong with that.
And if they do change that, Alan, I reckon you'll call it, take the credit, get the blame. But your housing essay, which zeroed in on that policy change triggering the surge in housing prices, if Chalmers does do that, I reckon people will go back to that essay and say, thanks, Mr. Kohler. You gave them permission to do this. And would you happily wear that one, Alan, as a crown of thorns, or?
Sure, no. I mean, it's clearly the case that the house prices started rising quicker than incomes in 2000, which was when the capital gains tax discount was brought in. But the other thing that happened around the same time, which I was talking about before, was the increase in immigration as a result of the first intergenerational report in 2002. And that took a bit longer to kick in, so that immigration started going up in 2005 a lot because of the rise in foreign students, which we've also just been talking about. So, I do think that they're probably not going to reduce foreign students because they can't afford to fund the universities to the extent that they need to be funded, so that they're not going to reduce foreign students' numbers. So the only way to deal with it is by increasing supply, and they're trying their hardest to do that. It's proving to be difficult because a lot of people don't want 20-storey apartment buildings in their suburbs, so there's a fair bit of pushback from communities against the densifying policies, which, maybe they'll just bulldoze them. I don't know. I mean, they'll just push through and do it anyway, and that's fair enough. So the only thing that's going to happen is if they do increase supply, flood the market with apartments and stop house prices rising so much, and that, I think, is what they're trying to do, and I kind of hope they do.
Now, Tom's got a really good point. He says that with the latest RBA rate rise and the increasing pressure on cost of living, why isn't anyone talking about taxation bracket creep as an easy way to aid cost of living pressures? In 2010, the top tax bracket was $180,000, and today it's $190,000, a mere 5.5% increase over 16 years. Meanwhile, inflation over the same period stands at 49%. How is it possible that inflation is growing more than 9 times the tax bracket growth, and it's not a major point of discussion to all? Tom, well said. We must have, I reckon, close to the lowest income for the top tax rate in the developed world. I mean, it's so easy. Workers these days, tradies, $190,000 before you know it, and you're on the top tax rate, and you're handing over close to 50% of your marginal income to the government. And that is a million miles from keeping up with inflation. And we never discuss bracket creep and the fact that the middle-class working people are getting smashed by income tax rates in Australia, which are incredibly progressive, people would call it, as in they call everyone rich and tax the bejesus out of them when they're not really rich at all and they're struggling to cope with life.
Yes. Well, if it wasn't for bracket creep, the structural budget deficit would be double what it is now. It'd be $100 billion. It'd be, the government would be broke. So the government relies on bracket creep in order to fund itself. The only way to deal with bracket creep really is to cut government spending.
And that's not going to happen anytime soon, is it? So,
no, it's not. It certainly is not, because they're increasing defence spending. NDIS, they're trying to reduce the growth in the NDIS to 8% a year without much success. Other welfare stuff is rising. I mean, government spending is at a record high.
Now, Alan, Mick loved your tip to listen to the 3-hour podcast with Elon Musk and Peter Diamandis. And apart from wondering if they were smoking weed throughout the recording, Mick found it fascinating. And given Musk's dire warning of AI coming for all our jobs and Alan's knowledge of the jobs market and shareholder expectations of profitability, what is Alan's prediction for unemployment levels by the end of this decade here in Australia? Now, Alan, your weekend briefing had an excellent look into this question of how many jobs are going to get smashed by AI. So what's your take on this?
Well, the short answer is don't know, but and the forecasts range from 0 to 100%, which is Elon Musk's, AI is going to take all our jobs. So I asked ChatGPT, what's the average of all the forecasts out there? And the answer came back 34%. So, which you got to love. You got to love a definite answer on something like that, don't you? But there it is. I mean, I think it was more a range of 30 to 35% is the kind of average of all the predictions about permanent unemployment as a result of AI, which kind of sounds reasonable.
Ridiculously high, I would argue. 35% increase in unemployment.
No, 35% permanent unemployment. Currently 4%.
But
so obviously
what politicians are ever going to tolerate that? I mean, you're just going to have massive tax and spend schemes. You will the system. If people are arcing up now about cost of living, what are they going to be saying when they haven't got a job? I mean,
exactly.
There's no way the political system will allow unemployment to get to 35%. I think it could go to 10% max. But humans are creative. They will respond. I can't believe Elon Musk is so irresponsible saying that AI is going to wipe out every job. I mean, the bloke's worth $850 billion and he's just wild, reckless. Come on. Surely you don't believe that 34% unemployment.
Look, to be honest, Stephen, I don't know what to think. I mean, I think that AI is clearly already taking a lot of jobs. We haven't even seen the arrival of mass humanoid robots yet, which are, basically they're shaped like human beings. They do what human beings do and do it better and do it faster. And I think we're entering uncharted territory. Really, I've got no idea what's going to happen. But I do think that blithely saying it'll be fine is ridiculous. It's like saying climate change isn't going to happen. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all bullshit. A lot of people say that on the right, particularly. It seems to me if you build a house in the forest, you take out insurance. You wouldn't go, it'll be fine. My house is not going to get burned down. It's fine. You obviously would insure your house. So, I mean, what's the point now?
Alan,
how can you possibly go now and say it's going to be fine? Unemployment's not going to rise much. We're not going to do anything. Really.
But Alan, the AI robots will just zip over to the fire and put it out in 5 seconds because there'll be no firemen because it'll all be done by AI. I mean, that's also how ridiculous it is, people saying that every single job is going to get wiped out. So
no, I'm not saying every single job. I'm not.
No, but I'm saying others are saying that. Elon Musk, others are saying that. And
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is that something big is going on. We don't know what's going to happen. Just like we don't know what's going to happen with climate change exactly, although it's clearly, the global temperature is already 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial ages, so it's clearly happening. So we should be taking out some sort of insurance. I don't quite know what to do. I just think governments need to be thinking about this and working out a plan. I mean, I think it's plain before our eyes that something's going on, something big is happening. So some level of permanent unemployment is going to happen. It won't be zero, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's not going to be 100%. So anyway, we're asked for an end of the decade prediction, and I'm saying permanent unemployment of 10%.
Okay,
which is more than doubling. That's a lot.
Yeah, but that's only 4.
It's not a Great Depression 30%.
I know, but that's only 4 years. I mean, Stephen, what about 10 years or even 50 years? I mean, don't worry about 10 years?
Don't underestimate human ingenuity, Alan. It's got a pretty good record to muddle through and deal with risk and grow and prosper. So I'm an optimist. Now, boss.
Yeah. So one of the things that Elon Musk said in that 3-hour podcast was, it's much better to be an optimist and wrong than a pessimist and right. So is that how you feel? You're better off being an optimist and wrong.
Well, I don't like the doomsday. The people who go over the top with doomsday scenarios, and I just think that we haven't had a technical disruption that's ruined the world before, and I think it's different to climate change. I do agree it's not quite existential, but I do agree that is a much bigger long-term risk than AI, in my view. And I think AI will help deal with climate change. But no one ever talks about that. Why aren't we using AI to fix climate? I mean, that's another debate we could be having that never gets had. Now, boss, we're almost out of time. I'll let you pick the last question.
I think we need to finish now, in fact. So
we've been talking way too much, ranting on. All right, well, we do have some good questions. We'll leave some of them for you and James next week. Okay, and thanks, everyone, for listening to the Money Café. We'll be back next week. I'll be back next week with James Thompson. Send in your question to themoneycafe@eurekareport.com.au.
Until then, I'm Alan Kohler, founder of Eureka Report and finance presenter and columnist for the ABC.
And I'm Stephen Mayne, and look forward to speaking to you all in a fortnight.